Thank you, everyone. This is our 2017 Benchmarking Project Risk presentation. Um, my name is Dan Orkin. I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing with Trusted IT Group. And for those that don't know who we are, this is the first time that you are joining this webinar presentation. We just take 5 seconds and introduce ourselves. We are a Microsoft Gold project and portfolio management partner. You can think of us in these three ways. One, that we provide thought leadership to the PPM community by providing webinars like this, presenting at PMI conferences on an international, national, and a local scale. We provide project management 365 configurations and enhancements for all the Microsoft 365 solutions out there. And we have a really interesting crawl, walk, run approach. We have solutions that cater to really all organizations, all different industries, and all different maturity levels. So we're just going to go ahead and dive right into here. I just wanted to mention that everything that we're going to be talking about does not represent any official position by Trusted IT Group or its clients, including any governmental agencies. So let's get into answering this. Whoever had answered 135 million, you are correct. So according to PMI, companies risk $135 million for every $1 billion spent on a project. 75 million of that 135 million, so 56%, is put at risk by ineffective communications, indicating that there's a critical need for organizations to address communications deficiencies at the enterprise level. So we're going to be talking about today risk management and how you can communicate some of these risks before they become issues. And having the right communications plan in place is really going to help mitigate all these different types of risks. So before we get too far into this, we're going to take a little bit of a crash course in risk management. So first, let's define what is a risk. A risk, according to Sorry, we're in the middle of a presentation. Can't take it right now. So what is a risk? A risk is an uncertain event or a condition which may have a positive or negative project outcome. It could really help it out or it could hurt it. There could be really one or more causes and one or more impacts that occur. You could also have different types of risks. You can have a known risk or something that just comes up out of the blue like an unknown risk. So when we are talking about risk management, we really should be able to define what the major processes are. So the first of these five processes as identified by the PMBOK guide, the first one is really plan risk management. So plan risk management really talks about defining how to conduct risk management activities. Following after that is to identify the risks. So you should be able to determine which risks are going to affect the projects in the program. And then you should be able to perform risk analysis. And there's really two different types of risk analysis that you could do. You can include a quantitative and a qualitative analysis along with prioritization of these different risks so that you can kind of, start to figure out which risks are going to have more of a priority, and you can kind of put numbers and intangible thoughts behind these. Additionally, when we're talking about plan risk responses, we're talking about really how to enhance opportunities and how to reduce the risks. So once we've identified the risks and we've performed our analysis, now we need to figure out if they happen, how are we going to handle them? And then maybe how are we going to make sure that none of these risks happen at all? And then lastly, we have controlling risks. So controlling risks are really important when we're trying to identify new risks that are happening. We also want to be able to track identified risks. We're going to want to implement a risk response plan. And then, of course, we need to evaluate the risk management effectiveness. So I hear that there's some chat going on. I think that we have some team members from Trust IT Group on there. So if you can help out and answering them in case that there's issues, I am sharing my screen, so I'm not going to be able to get to it. But I will leave some time for some question and answer afterwards. So now let's talk about some of these risk factors. So first of all, we have a risk event. A risk event is the precise description of what may happen to the project. There's also risk probability. The risk probability discusses what's the likelihood that the event will occur. And then lastly, we have the amount at stake, which is really the magnitude and the potential loss or the gain should one of these risks become an issue. And just wanted to talk about some of the risk management benefits. And I know that we had a couple questions that were sent in through email prior to this webinar, and I want to make sure that we cover some of the risk management benefits before we actually get into the survey. So the first benefit that you could see is standardization and scale. And when we're talking about standardization and scale, when it comes to risk management, really talking about creating consistency in a formal risk management plan so that resources within the organization, that your team is using the same forms and following the same procedures so that everyone's doing things in the same way. Additionally, it creates accountability and action. So this really starts to define the way that we're going to deal with the risks, and it identifies who's going to be responsible for dealing with the risk, who's the risk owner, and what are the actions that need to be taken in order to mitigate the risk. So in the case that a risk occurs, we need to see what's the impact on the project baselines and how does it affect the timing, how does it affect the cost and the quality, and what are the benefits over here. So next we're going to talk about the visibility and the cost savings that come with, some of the benefits with risk management. And this really talks about that it really ensures the enough time for you to create your contingencies. And it's really important that you give yourself enough time to identify these risks so that if something happens, you have enough time to really plan for it. Because some of these risks could really be detrimental to a project's health. And when you have visibility across all levels within an organization, now you really have your sponsors, your key executive management on board, that they have visibility, they have these cost savings on here so that we all are working together as one team. And this kind of transitions into executive sponsorship. So everyone knows that executive sponsorship is really one of the main drivers to project success. So when we're talking about executive sponsorship with risk management, again, that your executive team understands and has the visibility about these risks, that nothing is one of these, oops, something just happened and now we need to ask for more budget, or we need to hire more people, or we need to stop this project, or we need to do something else. We need to have this kind of visibility, which really minimizes the impact on the business. So going forward into this results of the survey, let me provide a little bit of background as to what we did. So staying true to the goal of keeping the project and portfolio management community up to date with the relevant information, what we did was we surveyed the community during Q3 in 2017 to really get a pulse on the current practices in project risk management. So we surveyed individuals at PMI conferences, at local chapters, within our marketing list, and we at Microsoft events to get a decent sampling size of the certain things that individuals are doing and how they perceive it within the organization with regards to risk management. So let's present some of the survey findings. First, let's talk about the first question that we asked is, what is the approximate total number of employees in your organization, in your company? So from the respondents, as you could see, that 44% of the respondents came from organizations of employee size of 5,000 or greater. The next, we had a tie between a small 1 to 49 person company at 20%. And then from 1,000 to 5,000, we had 20%. And then we had between 50 to 1,000 individuals within an organization, we had 14%. So just to give you an idea on who is actually answering these survey questions. The next question was, we wanted to understand the industries at which the respondents came from. And again, this was an anonymous survey, so we don't know who filled this out. All we know is that they came from, the majority came from large organizations. And as you can see from this bar chart right here, that 14% came from professional services. We also had another 14% from the other industry. And then after that, we had 13% at healthcare. We had 11% from manufacturing. And then we had between 2 to 4 to 6% between telecommunications, banking and capital markets, media, nonprofit organizations, power and utilities, etc. So this is where we start to get an understanding of how organizations, how these respondents actually view themselves. So before we ask them any specific question, we ask them the question on how would you rate your project and portfolio risk management process maturity. So 0 means that they have no risk management process in place at all, and 5 would mean that they're the most mature process. So the largest at 29% thought that they were at a level 3 maturity process, which is right there in the middle. The next largest one was at 21%. So 21% thought that they were just basically at the very beginning at a level 1. 2% and 17% both were tied at the level 2 and the level 4. And 11% thought that they had no risk management process in place, and 3% thought that they were a level 5. So now, what we asked them was, the first question is, do you have a risk checklist that you go through before starting a new project? So 51% said that yes, they did, and 49% said that no, they did not. So this already starts to give us an understanding that there is an area of opportunity for organizations to start to collect a risk log, risk register, before even tying it to a specific project and just going through a checklist before starting a new project. Basically, this means that there's a big opportunity for organizations that need to identify the risks, and that will help them manage them effectively. You should be able to continuously identify the risks, and going through the risk identification ahead of time, basically creating this risk checklist. So this one is showing that there is a really good opportunity for organizations to build this checklist. The next question that we asked them is, do you have a dollar value associated to risks? So 35% said that yes, they did, and 64% said no, they did not. So 64% are not assigning a dollar value to risks. And this is a really important thing that we should really just take a second and talk about, because when a risk actually happens, a realized risk, then it becomes an issue, and this could really be costly to the business. Setting the right expectations at the very beginning really is a good practice, and management should really mandate to carry a dollar reserve whenever you could for a risk. Understand that there are some risks that don't have a dollar value, but for the most part, you can probably set some sort of dollar value to the risks, and then those need to be communicated in some type of way that has a measurable impact on the project should the risk actually become a reality. So this is another great area of opportunity to improve the risk management practice that you have in place. The next question that we ask them is, do you have due dates for a specific risk activity? So this pertains to kind of predicting when a risk might actually become an issue, or when a certain type of mitigation plan needs to happen for the risk to be resolved. So again, there's a big area of opportunity. That 41% said that no, we do not put due dates to a risk activity, and 59% said yes, we do. The next question that we asked is, do you assess the probability of risks? So again, 20% said no, and 80% said that yes, we did. And when we're talking about probability, we're really talking about what the risk, the risk for when the event may occur. The probability of this risk occurring, it could really range anywhere from 0% to it not happening to 100% to it definitely happening. However, we just need to kind of think about that, because theoretically it wouldn't be a risk if it was 100%. Then it would be something that we need to, it would be an issue at that point. And then 0 would mean that it wouldn't even be a risk at all. So theoretically, we can kind of change that statement and say that it should be from 1% to 99%, even though you can really go from 0 to 100. And here's where we're going to start to get to some of the main thing that we can get out of this survey. So we have we had a question that asked, do you have a process to escalate the risks? So again, this is getting accountability into play, and making sure that we know who to route what risks to. So 74% responded that yes, that you do have a process to escalate risks. And 25% said no, there is no process to escalate risks. So when we're talking about escalation, this is something that we should probably take a second and talk about for the 25% that answered no. So this is something that could be kind of could be a tricky situation, because there's a couple reasons why escalation may not happen. The first reason why escalation may not happen is that there may be some sort of conflict or a clash between who's ever presenting the escalation of the risk to where that risk is involved to. So somebody might take it as a complaint against a person if a risk actually happens. Another reason could be that it could be viewed as almost an attack, almost as if that when a risk is being escalated, this is almost taken personally. It's not really taken professionally. So there is a little bit of a political pull when we're talking about whether or not should we escalate risks, and bad news is never really taken well. But if you have this risk management practice in place, and it is a normal practice to escalate risks, it's kind of better to escalate the risk before something actually happens, because if something happens and the risk is never escalated, that could actually lead to a worse situation. Now, here's something else to consider. We asked in the survey questions, do you include risks into reporting for leadership teams? So 22% said no, we do not, while 77% said that yes, we did. So this is an interesting point, and the reason why we think that this is an interesting point is because organizations are including risks into reporting for leadership teams. As we can see, the majority are, 77% are. However, if we backtrack to a couple different slides, and I guess I'm just going to go back just to highlight this point. Let's go back to the beginning. So organizations are not providing every single detail that they can to their leadership team to really give them all the information that they need to make these accurate decisions. For example, they may not indicate whether they went through the checklist at the very beginning. They may not be including dollar values to the risks when they're doing the reporting. They may not be including due dates when they're providing the reports to the leadership teams. They may not be providing the probability that these risks are happening. And they may not have this right escalation in place to really discuss this in the valid reporting to the leadership team. And this risk reporting kind of ties along with the PMI quote that I had at the beginning of the presentation, because without the right effective communication, projects have a tendency to fail. So this is something that you could do really from the beginning, is before creating a project, to kind of have this right risk management practice in place to really help out with this type of risk reporting to the leadership teams. So another question that we asked is, do you use risk management for strategic planning? And this is also another great area of opportunity. So 42.9% said that no, they do not, and 57.1% said that yes, that we do include risk management in strategic planning. And this is also going to really strongly correlate to the next question. But again, when we're talking about risk management with strategic planning, we could use the tools that we have in place to capture historical risk information. We could then use this historical data to allow our senior management to understand the threats and the opportunities with the risk and with the projects. And this allows you to provide strategic planning for their businesses in a much more objective way. So should you have a tool in place, a solution in place that has this repository of all the risks that are going on from day one all the way to the current time, you could take a look at which projects that we're doing, what are the typical types of project types, for example, what are the risks that we've had over the course of X amount of time, and then we could use this type of risk management data to help drive strategic planning. So remember these answers, that 42 said no and 57 said yes. And this is with, do we use risk management for strategic planning? So another question that we asked, which is the last question, we asked, do you assess a strategy for dealing with risks that are agreed upon by all appropriate parties and tracked until closure? So again, exactly 42.9% said no, and 57.1% said yes. And I guess I'm just going to go and flash back to the previous slide. And you could see that, again, these are the same answers. So those that do not use risk management for strategic planning, obviously they don't have a strategy for dealing with risks. So kind of this here tells me that the two are very closely correlated, that should you have, in the previous slide, should you include risk management with the historical data for your strategic planning, then you're going to be able to have a strategy for dealing with risks. And if you have the strategy for dealing with risks, organizations are in a much better position to actually mitigate these risks. So again, 42% said no, and 57.1% said yes. So I know that I blocked out an hour time. I know that it's getting to be the end of the year for most, and we have a lot of things going on. So we may end this webinar almost half an hour soon, but I just want to go through the next slides and leave it open for some questions. So I do want to say what's next, that we have this infographic that shows all the survey answers. If you go to www.trusteditgroup.com/risk infographic, it's live right now. You can go right to the website and download this infographic that kind of shows everything that was covered in this presentation, and you could take this back and dissect it on your own. And additionally, we also wanted to provide something else. So we are also, if you go to this website, trusteditgroup.com/risk infographic, when you fill out the form to download the infographic document, we also included a risk management Power BI report. Now, again, I don't want to take credit for this report. This is a snippet from the free Microsoft Power BI content pack, the 2.0 version that was just released a couple weeks back. But what we did was we just took out that one specific report and place it as a template, so you can go and download the infographic document along with the risk report really in one shot. And just to show you how to use it, so when you download that Power BI template pack, you're going to be able to input your PWA project online site, and then you're also going to be able to upload maybe a link that shows your logo image. And then this is going to pull the risk information from your project online environment or your project server environment. So just to show you some of the things that we were talking about, that we really wanted to make sure that we provided something following this presentation that really gave you an understanding on how can we standardize these risk management processes, and how can executive leadership almost like make sure that this is being done. So we could take a look at this risk report, and you could see over here that you could see the risks by the category. You could see which risks are associated to specific projects. So here you'll have a filter for the project name. You can filter by the project department. You can filter by the project type, and you can filter by the project owner. And it gives you certain categories to look at. So one is, have we identified what the risk is? Has this risk been assigned to anybody? Have you provided a category? Is it low? Is it high? Is it medium? Have you provided due dates? Have you provided a cost? Is there a cost exposure to this? Is there a probability associated to this? So you could start to use this free Power BI report to pull information from your project online environment and really understand, where are we lacking in our risk management process, so that you could see where the information is missing, and we can go back and try to fill that up. So as we could see right here, we have a risk that's called company merger, and it looks like we're missing a cost associated to that and a probability. So you'd probably want to go back to the project manager and say, look, I saw that you have the risk identified. However, we still need to be able to, make sure that we put a cost to there and a probability to there. So also, we want to offer everyone that has attended and has registered to this webinar a complimentary risk assessment. So we could take a look at all these different survey questions and some other components that are important to risk management, and assess it to the point to where and how it's being used within your organization, and we can provide some suggestions for some future growth.